Hey everybody, welcome to RotoWire's Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the good folks at WinBet. This is also known as the Saquon Cast. Jeff Erickson here with Chris Liss. It was an interesting week 4. We finally saw a lot of, some guys come back to value that we were worried about early on, or maybe you weren't worried about. But how was your week, Chris?
It was good. It was really good. I really enjoyed the Giants game for once. Turn this light. It's a little, there we go. A little more light. I really enjoyed the Giants game for once in the last 3 years. It was really enjoyable. Danny Dimes played out of his mind against a good defense. Saquon looked great. Golladay, the big signing this year, he looked the part. Kadarius Toney had a breakout. He got a key third down, broke a lot of tackles. He's the guy that Elijah Moore was promised to be, that elusive, super quick, run after the catch receiver, and he really looked good. And it was kind of, Sterling Shepard and Slayton were out, and it was kind of good because it kind of opened up things for him. And now they know what they have. And then Saquon was amazing. And Danny Dimes to Saquon was great. Saquon had the game-winning touchdown in overtime. It was just a fantastic game. Now, Sean Payton did his best to help the Giants, too, which I liked. He was he's an ex-Giants coach.
Yeah.
And he tried a field goal. I've never seen this. On a 58-yard field goal with ex-Giant backup kicker Aldrick Rosas, and 58-yard field goal on 4th and 3. It's just insane. I mean, it was like, well,
if Justin Tucker can do it, anybody. No, it doesn't work that way.
Right, but even with Justin Tucker, I wouldn't try a 58-yarder on 4th and 3. I mean, I probably would just, 4th and 3 is a go for it down unless it's, unless you're down 2 and there's 10 seconds left or something, pretty much. So that was just crazy. And Sean Payton is so weird because he obviously does something well. But and then he also had a challenge where it was the Giants, like on 2nd and 4 or whatever, got like a 4-yard gain. They got a first down, and he threw the flag. And had he won the challenge, the Giants would have had 3rd and inches. That was the win. That was the upside. And he lost the challenge, wasted a timeout anyway. But even if he won, it was like, oh, I'll hold them to 3rd and inches. This is a really good plan. So I don't know where his head was at, but I appreciate it. The Giants played great. Danny Dimes played great. Defense got a lot of 4th down stops. And it was just really enjoyable from a Giants fan perspective.
I'm thankful for this too, because a lot of people had the Saints in Survivor. I'm in this contest, and you've been in it before too. The Season, SZN.com, great contest. But they pointed out that Jameis is the anti-Survivor guy. He will always do the opposite of what you expect. The 2 weeks where they were favored, they lost at New England, at Carolina. And then this week, home against the Giants, finally home for the first time. The 2 weeks where they're expected to lose, they won in Jacksonville against Green Bay and at New England. And Jameis has always had this history too. It's kind of crazy. It's not just the Saints. It is the Saints too. They've been a Survivor killer for years.
Oh, totally. They wiped me out week 1 year, I think.
Yeah. And then this year, they're 4 for 4 and doing the opposite of what you expect. It's hilarious.
Opposite teams and opposite players are the killers, because if you do what you're supposed to, then you start the guy against the weak defense and he goes off, and then you sit him against the tough defense. He does nothing and you're happy. But the opposite guys are the killers because you never get their proper fantasy points. And I wrote about this. I think Devontae Adams last year just crushed the weak defenses, and he was very mediocre. I mean, obviously he started him no matter what against the good defenses. And last week against Pittsburgh, this week didn't do much, but just absolutely destroys the bad pass defense. It just owns them. And that's the perfect fantasy player. Again, you're going to start him every week, so it doesn't really matter. But you want your guys to be predictable. That it makes a big difference, especially at the margins.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. So, any other takeaways from Giants Saints? I'll tell you one. It's still a problem. Kamara's still got a problem, a Taysom Hill problem. This is huge. In some leagues, I was going up against Kamara, and he vultured away 2 touchdowns.
Hill is good at the goal line. He's big. He's physical. He runs hard. And also, because he can take the snap as a QB, they have 10 blockers. So it makes perfect sense to use Cam Newton or Taysom Hill at the goal line. You have an extra blocker. Running back, you're handing it off, and the QB is not a blocker. So I guess you could direct snap to Kamara just the same. But he's used to taking it that way. He's used to taking the snap rather than the handoff. And this is probably a long-term problem. And it's going to cut into his touchdowns. The other disturbing thing is he got a career high in carries of 26, but he got 0 targets. So Kamara was the most efficient per touch running back in the history of the NFL. That's a Scott Barrett stat. Because he got so many catches per touch, not a lot of carries, which are less, fantasy points, and so many touchdowns per touch. So, he'd get the same amount of touchdowns as Derrick Henry on 150 less carries. But the problem is now he's getting carries, no catches, and no goal line. So basically he's the opposite. This is exactly what you did not want. You don't care that he got 26 carries. It does you no good. So you got you 12 points. He ran great. Offensive line is good. Now I'm sure that'll change a little bit, but when Kamara has fewer catches than I think Derrick Henry, or it's pretty close this year, that's a big problem.
Yeah, it is. Is this something that's repeatable? I kind of worry. I kind of think that's kind of like Eckler not getting any catches in week 1. It's just kind of like, it just didn't happen this week.
Maybe, but look at his catches the whole year. He's not getting, 6-7 catches a game. It's not just this week. I mean, this week was the most glaring example, but I'm looking at his game log. He had
4, 6, and 4 on targets. Yeah.
Not great. 3, 4, 3, 0. So, Derrick Henry, I know he had 6 catches one week and 3. I know he had 2 last week. Derrick Henry has more catches than Kamara on the year.
Yeah. I mean, all this time we were thinking, okay, Jameis would be better for Kamara than Taysom Hill. And it probably is still, but
no, not
maybe it was really a Drew Brees issue. Maybe it's just Brees was so good at leading him and all that. And
checking down. He's going to check down every time because he doesn't have legs. It's the QB now. Jameis doesn't really have legs, but he can move a little bit. And it's just his style of play. Jameis throws down the field. He's got a bigger arm. And although he's been dinking and dunking mostly to receivers, but he just doesn't check down that much. And, the Hill problem we thought was like, oh, well, it's going to screw Kamara on the goal. But they're bringing him anyway on the goal line. So it doesn't really matter who the QB is.
Right.
And Kamara, I mean, I think, you don't want to panic. He will get more catches, but he's not any longer. I mean, I would take Saquon straight up ahead of Kamara right now.
Yeah. Let's talk Saquon. Obviously his best game so far. He looked good. Where are you putting him among running backs now?
Maybe 1 with McCaffrey hurt.
1, huh? Interesting. Over Derrick Henry.
I mean, it's close. It's close. I mean, Henry had only 2 catches this week. That team is okay. It's not necessarily even better than the Giants right now. I think so. I think I put him over Henry. I mean, he's healthy now. He gets more catches. I mean, if Henry keeps getting a lot of catches, then it's a closer call. He only had 2 this week, so I'm not really sure. But I think I got to put Barkley 1. Yeah, I think I would take him ahead of Henry.
Above him. I'm taking Henry above him still. I'm going to rewatch this game. I want to see exactly. I mean, I'm number scouting right now. I haven't seen the replay of this game yet. 13 for 52. I mean, that's okay.
That's against the Saints. That was against the Saints. That's like one of the best run defenses in the league.
Well, Henry was against the Jets. Never mind.
Well, he had 33 carries, and that is what's great about Henry. But Henry took some nasty shots. I don't know if you watched the overtime and he was getting drilled. I'm curious about his injury report status. I know he's a beast, but he took some big shots. And
if there's long-term ramifications too, and they have no other weapons. I mean, they were down Brown and Julio, and that made a big deal. You could tell it made a really big deal in the passing game. But Tennessee also had their chances early against the Jets. The Jets were jetsing it up in the first half offensively. The Tennessee defense actually looked good for a half a second. Once that stopped and Zach Wilson stopped giving it away, Tennessee was kind of toothless. I mean, they had a pretty impressive drive to tie the game late. But this was, and then they were cowardly in overtime. They played for that tie.
Yeah, well, no, on the last, they had to kick the field goal because it was there was 20 seconds left.
No, but all the stuff before that, the play calling was so slow. There was no urgency. They were trying. They were content to try to kick. To
tie. Well, you might be too in that division, right? I mean, the Colts were 0-3, and you get a tie. You're what? Were you 2-1 and you 2-1-1? I mean, the tie might be a win in that division, so it's not wrong. But and they beat the Colts head to head. But so tie may be all you really need and not risk the loss. I thought Tannehill fought like a maniac. He got sacked 7 times. He had no receivers, and they were right there at the end. I mean, the Jets defense isn't great, but they were getting pressure. It was cool. They knocked out some people in Survivor. The Saints, the Giants, and Jets both won, helped people in Survivor. And I really feel good about the Bills. I mean, it sucked because I was joking, but I said I wanted some drama. I wanted to, be on the edge of death, tortured to the edge of death like I was with the Ravens. And this is like, obviously one of the easiest games you could have, 40-0. But it also shows like, don't force the thing if the pot odds aren't there. If you're not getting paid for switching teams, don't switch teams. And the Bengals could have lost easily. They were on the ropes. Yes, I mean, the Jaguars punted it in the fourth quarter. If they go for it and make it, maybe it's them who are kicking the game-winning field goal. So, it was just a vindication. It was like, take risks where risks are warranted, but don't take risks where the risk is not where you're not being compensated for it.
Yeah, I hear you. But this is having the Bengals this week was like having your squeak by with the Ravens last week there. Bengals didn't have a lead until the very last play of the game. But hey, I'll take it. As a Bengals fan, I'm still pumped because they won without their best. That's the way I look at it there. They clearly were not up for the game despite like a crazy wild crowd. It was almost like missing that field goal on the very first drive, kind of took the wind out of their balloon a little bit. Jacksonville just drove down. They were missing their top cover corner, their top safety. They're going to get T. Higgins back next week. Sometimes you need to win without your best. They host the Packers, which it's going to be a massive crowd, probably a lot of Packers fans, but it will be a sellout. They had like 63,000 on Thursday night for the Jaguars, so they're excited there for this team, and it's a fun team. Burrow is fun to watch. The defense has some fun players. They do generate a pass rush, so I think it could be. I'm going to have this false October optimism, but let me have it. I don't usually even get that.
Yeah, I mean they're not terrible, and it's something to root for. You got some young guys, Burrow and Chase and Higgins. I mean, why wouldn't you be excited about it? I mean, you should
Exactly. So
enjoy it. You'll get. Yeah, they're not going anywhere, I don't think. But you don't know. What if Burrow is like the one? Burrow has the attitude. It was Andre was talking about it on our show. He has the attitude, he had, so does Baker Mayfield, even though Baker Mayfield, I think, isn't very good, but
swagger.
It's necessary. It's not sufficient. Right. So, but if you don't have it, it's like I think you're kind of limited. You have to be able to take the ball in that drive with pass rush, with bad things happening around you, and just feel like have the confidence that you're going to get it done. I've heard it described. The QB is like the guy with the spear who has to kill the bear. And, and it's like, he might not be the strongest guy, but it's the guy who can sit there and watch it come up to him and be patient and do it. It just takes a lot of nerve to be an NFL quarterback, and you either have it or you don't.
Yep.
And some of these guys kind of have it or they're talented, but then when the real pressure is on, they can't do it. And if you can find a guy who has enough natural talent and can do it, and Burrow kind of seems like that. Then you don't have a ceiling. Then it's just about you need to get some bounces, you need to get some teammates around you, you need to have health, but you don't really have a ceiling in that case.
Yeah, that's right. So, but yeah, I'm excited to have a team that has ceiling. So I'm excited about that, or I should say a high ceiling. There's a possibility there, and Pittsburgh sucks. And that's always fun too. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah, the Steelers are really bad. And that Green Bay line of 6.5 seems so trappy. Like, why is this only 6.5 in Lambeau? Like, it's making me suspicious, but I'm like, I got to take the Packers anyway. And of course, if they got that blocked field goal touchdown, they might have covered, but you shouldn't have to rely on that. And so, there was nothing there. There was nothing there. It was just, it's just the Pittsburgh brand. I talked about this with Rufus on the show last week. The brand of the Steelers has some cachet still, but the reality of it is pretty weak.
They have good talent in some places. It's really getting held back by the quarterback. And I think the defense is just a little bit off too. So anyways, before I move on, we're going to talk Bears-Lions here in a second. But before we do that, there's one thing we appreciate here at RotoWire, it's making good decisions, and even more so, making the right decision. Listen up, folks. I have an incredible offer for you with RotoWire's newest partner, WynnBET, the premier digital casino and sportsbook app. WynnBET is now the exclusive sponsor for RotoWire's fantasy podcast. WynnBET brings you all the latest action with a user-friendly interface, moneyline bets, boosted parlays, over-unders, round robins, live betting, and so much more at your fingertips. Want a break from sports betting? Head into WynnBET's digital casino and take a spin on roulette, double down in blackjack, slam the slots, or try your hand at baccarat. WynnBET is currently available in 6 states: Colorado, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Tennessee, Virginia, while rapidly expanding. At WynnBET, the possibilities are limitless. WynnBET is currently offering all RotoWire listeners a risk-free bet up to $500 on your first wager. Download WynnBET now. That's WYNNBET. WynnBET, the exclusive partner for RotoWire's fantasy podcast. Jeff Erickson here with Chris Liss. We are breaking down Week 5. The Lions just failed in the red zone yet again. I think just now. It was a brutal game. They kept on driving and then stalling out or having dumb turnovers inside the 10-yard line. It was really crazy how that first half played out.
Yeah, I had the Bears as my best bet, so I'll take it. They had to stop a lot of fourth down. They had to set a lot of fourth down conversions that didn't happen, and I'll take it. But it was weird. The Lions are they're just one of those teams that does that kind of thing. I don't know. I mean, there's not. What else can you say? I mean, they just had a lot of chances.
Yeah. In this game, David Montgomery got hurt. They're going to have an MRI today. They don't think it's a torn ACL. They think it's a hyperextended knee. It still sucks. It still probably puts him out for a couple of weeks. So I got to imagine Damian Williams is going to be a pretty big pickup option this week, especially with the way the Bears offense is running. Yeah.
We thought last year that Dave Montgomery had been like wishboned and his groin was split when he fell in a horrible way and got carted off. And then he played Week 1 and then was like the best back in the second half last year. So that dude is kind of unkillable, but we'll see. Hopefully it's just a minor thing. But Damian Williams is probably going to be the pickup this week.
Does Justin Fields kill Allen Robinson's value? Only had 3 targets yesterday, 6 the week before, 4 the week before that.
It hurts. It doesn't help. But Darnell Mooney had a big game, so I think that could just as easily be Robinson. So I don't know if it kills it. And it's just he's really only played game and a half, so he's going to have to get his
2.5 games. 2.5.
No, did he start last week?
He started last week against Cleveland. It was hard to remember because he had like 1 yard passing.
He had 6 completions. Yeah. So he should get better. And I think things like the progressions, like knowing who's where, and you're reading things like it's the plays developing and you're figuring out like where to get the ball, timing. I think that stuff's going to get a lot better probably. So no, I don't think it kills his value, but I thought Robinson was just a can't fail player. I was like, he could get hurt like anyone else, but if he's healthy, he's going to catch 95 passes. He cannot fail. And, I have been wrong so far. He's totally failed.
Yeah. They get Vegas next week at Vegas. So we'll see. I mean, Vegas has to play tonight against the Chargers. That's the last of the prove it games for the week. The teams that were trying to prove it had a mixed results. Arizona, we'll talk about that in detail a little bit more, but they dominated. They were awesome. They proved everything. The Broncos were the opposite. They failed miserably. Even before Bridgewater got hurt, they weren't moving the ball very well. They had 1 good drive early on. And then the in-between result, I think, was Carolina at Dallas. They had you could look at it a couple different ways. They had a halftime lead. They got screwed on one call. That was a really bad missed call by the refs. But they also fell behind a lot in the second half. Darnold turned the ball over a couple of times, and they scored a garbage time touchdown to make it kind of closer late. But I think Carolina's a legit decent team. But obviously they got knocked down a peg yesterday too.
Yeah, I mean, Denver was suspect. I mean, the Giants just played a terrible game against them, and they crushed them. And then they had the Jets and Jaguars, which are probably the 2 worst teams in football, and they got exposed. I actually switched that. I had Denver, and I switched it to Baltimore, which I don't normally do. Mm-hmm. And then because I just hadn't really thought through like how bad the competition was that Denver had beaten up on. And Teddy Bridgewater's not good, and Drew Lock's worse.
Drew Lock was terrible.
Yeah, he's bad. But Teddy Bridgewater's not good. He's just better than Lock. So, yeah, that was smart. And then the other one I switched was I had the Dolphins and I switched back to the Colts because I forgot. I was like, wait, Brissett. And then I thought, oh, but Wentz, but Brissett, but Wentz. But Brissett's worse than Wentz. Brissett is he just cannot. He cannot get it done. There's just nothing there. The Dolphins have nothing. There's nothing to the Dolphins. And so, that was kind of an easy call too. But I thought Carolina, the problem is Darnold. I think Darnold, those rushing touchdowns, he's got 5 rushing touchdowns, by the way, in 4 games. He's on pace for 20 rushing touchdowns, Darnold. And they're good plays. I mean, he looks quick, he runs well, he moves well, but he had those 2 picks in the third quarter. And that's Darnold. Can make any play, is more mobile than you think, great arm, can throw on the move, can just make incredible throws, but will always make that boneheaded pick. I just think in college, he threw a lot of picks with the Jets. He showed signs and they would make the bad play. I mean, I know the situation was bad, but I am not bullish on Carolina because I don't think the QB scales to higher against better teams.
And I think that's exactly right. And you mentioned college with Darnold. It was the tough games is where he came up a little small. I remember the bowl game against Ohio State where Ohio State bludgeoned him that game. And a lot of that was he could not handle their pass rush. Now, that's a good pass rush. Chase Young and company. I mean, that'll do that to you. But nonetheless, you're right. I think there is a certain ceiling. He's definitely way better than he was with the Jets, but it still might not be good enough. And that's the interesting thing. Okay. Looking at the rest of that game, any other takeaways from Dallas, Carolina?
Dallas's defense is good, and that's going to hurt Dak and the receiver. So Zeke had a big game. Pollard was good, but you see CeeDee Lamb did almost nothing. Cooper had a hamstring, but he scored a touchdown. They spread it around. Dalton Schultz seems like the guy, but Dak had 200 yards or less. He had 4 touchdowns, but that's not the important thing. They're just not having to throw as much because their defense is good. And so I just don't – and Dak is not mobile this year. He just doesn't move. So I don't think Dak is top 10 fantasy quarterback right now. So that's my takeaway with Dallas.
Yeah, it's around 10 for me. We'll see, but yeah, it's not the same as before. You're absolutely right. He does not move around nearly as well, and that's obviously should be expected to a little bit there. But yeah, that's an interesting takeaway. Yeah, you compare him versus Jalen Hurts. Dak is a much better player, but Hurts is the garbage time machine right now. And he gets you that rushing floor, and even when Philly's getting beat pretty comfortably in the second half, he's still producing. Although I will say the overturned touchdown in that Philly-Kansas City game was a huge play in that game.
Yeah, it was horrible because they were going to cover, and I really needed them to cover. But he also did something horrible on 4th down. He threw the ball away.
That 4th and 20. Oh my gosh.
Dude, just toss it. Honestly, throw a punt. If you have to, throw a punt. Just throw it up in the air high. Let it get knocked around. Just never on 4th down throw it out of bounds or out of the end zone or to nobody. Just never do that. I don't know. To me, that is a mark against the quarterback. You never see a poised quarterback do that because they know the situation. They're not just going to forget. Now, I'll give them a mulligan one time, but usually when you throw the ball away on 4th down, it's such a bad sign of your sort of situational awareness.
Yeah, especially when you're down 2 scores, 3. I think was it 12? Was it 12 or 17 at that?
It was one of the two. But either way, I mean, it's 4th down.
The 4th quarter, yeah. I mean,
if you throw the ball down the field and far, it's a punt if they intercept it. I mean, it's just there's no justification for it. So
right.
I don't know. It was annoying, but I had Hurts in one place and he did well. And he is a great fantasy quarterback, and he does sling it all over the place. And Ertz is involved, and Goddard's involved. I think Ertz had 2 end zone targets that didn't connect, but they're looking for him in the end zone. They're looking for him a lot. Yeah. And Rieger's kind of in and out of the target share, but it's what's his name? It's Gainwell, Ertz, Goddard, and Smith. That's pretty much it. And there's a lot of attempts, so all those guys are going to be useful. Miles Sanders is very frustrating, but those other guys are all getting involved.
Yeah, but how many people had Gainwell active? Unless you're in a really, really
I benched him for Aguilar at the last second. I as my flex. I was like, Gainwell, Aguilar. I was like, Aguilar, the Tampa had their whole secondary. Aguilar had like 4 catches for like 40 yards or something, but Gainwell had 20 points.
Yeah. But I think he's going to be one of those guys that's a little bit risky there. Fantasy Football Geek asks, time to give up on Sanders? No, I don't think it's time to give up on Sanders. I think that he's still he's frustrating. He's a headache. I just think it's a mistake to give up on him. I mean,
well, it depends what you mean by give up, right? Like you're not going to drop him, but like give up mean like don't start him until further notice.
Or trade low, but
trading to me, trading is like there is such a disproportionate amount of talk in our industry about trading versus the frequency of trades actually happening. Like trades
especially
almost never
football
happen.
Versus baseball. And baseball trades happen all the time.
Yeah, but for category reasons, I guess they do more.
Yeah,
but when we're like a keeper league, they're always happening because of keepers, and same with football for keepers. But for and that's a whole different analysis. But for like trading, people talk about, oh, should I trade this guy? Should I trade this guy? Like, just worry about your free agents and your start-sit decisions. And if you get lucky and pull off a trade, great. But like that's like 5% of it.
Yeah. And as far as like, start-sit decisions, I'm going to have I think it's like week to week on the matchups a little bit there. I mean, the last 2 have been extremely frustrating with him. I get it. I am still inclined to, I'm still going to have them somewhere around 20 in my rankings. I'm thinking they get Carolina next week. You're not supposed to run against them very well, although Zeke ran just fine against them. But that's Zeke. I think that's the tricky part. It's an interesting decision. Next 2 weeks at Carolina against Tampa Bay.
Tampa, no chance. Gainwell is the guy you would use against Tampa if you're going to use either of them.
Yeah. So it's going to continue to be frustrating, but he was frustrating last year too. We had this discussion with Sanders last year. So
Sanders last year, it was a destroyed offense. It was they led the league in turnovers, both kinds of turnover and sacks. You can't be a running back in that kind of offense. And then he dropped a bunch of passes and fumbled. So like it was just
that's true.
This is not what's going on this year. This year, they're going away from him, and they're using 2 things are happening. They're going away from him for no reason, and then they are also using Kenny Gainwell, who looks good.
Yeah.
So there's 2 problems at once, and it's not the disaster that was last year, though.
That's true. That's true. Before I move on, a quick note from our friends at Yahoo. The new NFL season is underway, and Yahoo is excited to kick off daily fantasy football. There will be a ton of big prize contests throughout the season on Yahoo, including their multi-entry contest now being shark-free. To celebrate the beginning of football season and Yahoo Daily Fantasy becoming shark-free, Yahoo is giving all users the opportunity to claim free $10 in contest entry credit. Users can take advantage of this free $10 entry credit offer to join one of Yahoo's biggest contests. In addition to the free credit, Yahoo has a $1 million DFS football contest live. The $1 million contest features $1 million in total prizes, including first place receiving $100,000 and an entry into the first ever Yahoo Fantasy Football Championship live finals event, which will occur at MGM National Harbor in Maryland this December. Play daily fantasy football on Yahoo this season. Visit sports.yahoo.com/dailyfantasy/welcome to claim the free $10 offer to get started. All right. Got a lot of other things to hit up here. We didn't really cover the Chiefs side, but Tyreek Hill is good. We knew he would be good. It was a matter of time. Some weeks it's going to be Kelsey. Some weeks it's going to be Hill. Honestly, I don't think there's much analysis to this one here. Hill was awesome. The Chiefs when the Chiefs keep the pedal to the metal, and they usually do, good things happen. I love that instead of just like trying to run it in the pile to run the clock out, they were aggressive. It's the most effective way to win. Just keep scoring.
Yeah, and Hill, that he could have a couple quiet games, but he's going to have an outburst like this any second. And it's he and Adams are 1 and 1A, and then you can rank anyone else you want, Cooper Kupp or Debo or DK Metcalf or Justin Jefferson or whoever. But I don't think there's any doubt who the top 2 guys are.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. Football team and the Falcons. That was like 2 different games for a little bit. Early on, the football team couldn't get out of their own way. But again, shockingly enough, the Falcons blew a lead. And Taylor Heineke had a massive game. F1 or Scary Terry or Touchdown Terry.
Scary Terry is the only good nickname. Come on.
McLaurin. F1's a really good nickname. But you just don't know any Formula One. That's why you don't get the reference.
I get the reference, but it's not as good as Scary Terry.
I don't know. Either way, he was awesome. I mean, that second touchdown was just wild.
When he fell down and came back to the ball, that one?
Yep. Yeah. And Heineke had to scramble just to get it off. It was amazing. The play to McKissick was pretty wild.
That sucked. They had, I mean, just kick the field goal, win by 1. You're laying 1.5. I get the cover, and yet they get this stupid touchdown down the sidelines. It was like there's no point in that. It was like there was just no point, and they even gave the ball back to Matt Ryan, who couldn't get it done. But that was just stupid. Just get it done. Just kick the field goal. Jesus, that was so. I had it in the bag.
Well, the best part too was, there was, a review of that, whether he got in, and of course, if you're the football team,
you're going to kneel on it.
Better off.
Right. They might just kneel on it twice. Right. They might just kneel on it twice on the 3-yard line and kick the field goal. They probably would have. That's probably what would have happened. Yeah. So like if it gets overturned, but whatever, it was a touchdown. But yeah, the Falcons, I made a joke. I said, I'm glad to see the Falcons are getting their first-round pick freak athlete involved finally. Yeah. Cordarrelle Patterson had 3 touchdown catches. Cordarrelle Patterson is 6'3", 240, and runs like a 4.35 or something, or at least he did. He's 30 years old. And nobody else, even though like he was kind of good on the Vikings, he scored 10 touchdowns that year, his rookie year. He's a first-round pick. Nobody else thought he was anything but a kick returner for 10 years. And now finally, a team's like, oh, maybe we'll get this ball in this monstrous guy who's super fast with great vision in the open field's hands now and then, see what happens. And everyone's like, this is a fluke. It's Cordarrelle Patterson. It's like, why? I don't understand why teams haven't gone to this guy. Oh, you got Mike Davis. He's got to touch the ball instead. And they did give Kyle Pitts like 8 or 9 targets, but he didn't do much. But yeah, I mean, Cordarrelle Patterson is an all-time athletic freak, all time. Not just like he's pretty talented. He is an all-time freak.
Yeah, I think so. It's crazy. Now Pitts' usage. A lot of people are. We're talking about him being a generational prospect. I have him in Stake League. That's the only place I have him because I thought I got a discount on him. I have to admit, I'm a little frustrated that he's not even getting the red zone usage. That's the thing that bugs me.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. I doubt like other teams are completely taking away Pitts. I mean, Ridley's on the team. I don't know what they're doing, but it's a really bad pick. I have him in 2 leagues, and especially one NFFC. And it's a really bad guy to have. I had Corey Davis that I could have started in my flex, I think, in that league. And I was like, I got to give Pitts another shot. I think I have Corey Davis in that league with somebody. I think it was Davis. And I'm like, because I have Mark Andrews and him. I took them both because Pitts slipped to the 6th round. So I just took him. And now I feel like I can't bench him because he's going to get 3 touchdowns the day I bench him. So these theoretical upside players are kind of a poison because, if it were just like some random guy who I had there who I drafted, if it were just like, I don't know, Juju, who I don't like and I didn't draft, I would just bench Juju. I wouldn't be worried about benching Juju, but I'm like worried about benching Pitts. And that's not good because, now he needs a prove it game. Now I'm going to have to bench him. He needs a prove it game, but necessarily that prove it game is going to be on my bench. So now I've just, missed his best game probably when it happens. I mean, maybe I'll still start him. We'll see what the matchups are, but it's not good.
Yeah, I'm not going to bench him because it's going to be harder to find anybody that's better, especially like in State.
No, I've got a tight end. I've got Andrew. So I have him in my flex. So it's easy to find.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's right. You are the double tight end guy. Usually one of them's Gronk, but yeah, boy, did the Bucs miss Gronk badly or
they
what?
Really missed him. Oh man. It was just, you could see they were totally covered. A lot of the guys on the outside, and Brady, his arm's not what it was. So it's like, that easy throw over the middle, he needs that. And Brait is just not up to the task. They really needed Gronk in that game. He's an important player for them. That was such a dud, that game. Now, I watched it this morning. I was like, it was just a bad game. It was just not very good. Mac Jones played well, but it was, the Patriots had a very conservative game plan, which worked because they could have won the game. But it was just very, Brady to win yet not cover. It was like if Brady smashed, it would be amazing. Or if Belichick beat Brady, it would be amazing. But for the Bucs to barely win, that's like the least satisfying outcome of all.
Agreed. And it was really and the rain had a lot to do with it, I think. That was part of it, and no Gronk. I mean, those were the 2 big things. OJ Howard's just never going to become a thing. at least in Tampa. If he couldn't do it this week, although the Pats, I think, are pretty good against tight ends. I think their opponent ranking against tight ends is really high. But
what's more likely? OJ finds the real killers, or OJ Howard has a good career?
He and Rojo together. Rojo scored, though, of course.
Yeah, Rojo scored.
Right after everybody gave up on it. I'm still out of the Rojo business. I don't think he's that good, but
he's all right. He's a good banger between the tackles, but there's only so much utility for a guy like that, especially if he's a head case, which is what they're saying. The thing about OJ Howard, which I didn't realize because I'm not a college guy, he didn't do much in college. He didn't have like a huge college career, which is kind of crazy because he was just such an athletic freak. He got drafted so early, but I don't think he had a huge college. I want to look this up again because I remember looking at it and being like, wait, that's all he did? And he was drafted that high? I just assumed he crushed it in college.
It's just because he has signature plays. He was, where he was such a freak. And it's, of course, it was Bama where they have so many different options there. But, yeah, the most yards he ever had was 602 in his junior year. Wasn't even a huge red zone target. So, yeah, I mean.
Yeah, he had 7 touchdowns in his whole college. I mean, 4 years.
Yeah. And maybe all of us carping thinking, okay, OJ Howard was a generational talent. I mean, we're the ones that are wrong. I think it was one of those where the size speed combo and all that, it is enticing. You would see him make a signature play. Like, why don't they do that more often? Well, maybe it's just the routes he runs generally aren't that good. That's possible. Maybe he's not that good of a blocker, so he doesn't get on the field as much. These are things.
It's just weird when
Bruce Arians, what's he doing?
Yeah.
Why isn't he playing him more?
Right.
Yeah. The dude who sits here in the chair versus guy who
sees him every day.
Yeah.
Although Bruce Arians, I think that guy's out to lunch anyway. But yeah, it is really funny how nobody. And I'm guilty of saying Bruce Arians, he's got OJ Howard. Why do they draft him? If they're not going to use him, but if the guy's not good, he's not good. And it is hilarious how we don't go back in time and say, oh, that take I made was totally wrong. I had no idea what the hell I was talking about. Right. I remember Bill Simmons when the Texans took Mario Williams over Reggie Bush, right?
Yep.
There needs to be the Department of Common Sense. And it's like, no, Mario Williams had a more valuable career than Reggie Bush. He was a Pro Bowl or double-digit sack guy from an edge rusher position. It's just so funny that but people, we're still going to have takes regardless.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And, the fact is we do remember those takes, and there are people that remember, Mel Kiper Jr.'s whiffs also. They're there. If I were more of a draftnik, I'd probably be tracking that a lot better, but it happens. The game I got the most wrong this week was Arizona and the Rams. I thought the Rams were an elite tier team, and I still think they might still be. I think it's hard to maintain that high level every single week. But this was a big, huge division game. In Arizona, I thought was a prove-it game. I thought that they kind of had trouble putting teams away sometimes. They had no trouble with the Rams at all. None. I mean, they were clearly the better team all the way through this game.
Yeah, it was surprising. I mean, I thought Arizona would cover, and I thought it was a good spot. But especially with the Rams beating Tampa, which is such a big win, like in terms of who's the best team in the conference, that was sort of settled that. So I thought it was a good spot for Arizona, especially with an easy game against Jacksonville last week. But I don't take a lot of meaning out of this. I think if they played again in LA, Rams would be like 3-point favorites, maybe 2.5. I'm not saying the Rams would definitely win because that's almost a 50-50 game, but I think Arizona's good. They're a good team for sure. I think the Rams are a good team. I think the Rams are probably slightly better, but they're close. I think that it's just unclear right now, like who the best teams are. And I would still if I were betting on who's going to win the Super Bowl, I would probably have the Rams ahead of Arizona, not by much, but by a little. Yeah.
The drive that struck me is when they started on their own 1 yard line after the goal line stand and just marched it down the field. That to me was like, oh, and they were all runs. Chase Edmonds had that huge run, but they were dominating the line of scrimmage against the Rams. I was like, did not expect to see that. And so, and maybe it's just that they were, the Rams were like, oh, that was our last chance. And they were deflated possibly, but Arizona dictated that entire game. I was really impressed. AJ Green 2 weeks in a row has done something. As Alan is mentioning in the comments here, still has a little gas left in the tank. The thing is, As a Bengals fan, I watched a lot of AJ Green last year, and he had nothing. And maybe though it was a case there where the whole team malaise dragged him down, and now he's got a new lease on life. We've seen that happen before. It might be more just he's landing in a better spot than as opposed to who's the example I'm always thinking? Andre Johnson. He's not Andre Johnson. He actually has still something left. He's not going to be a dominator, not on that team, but he's going to be he's going to be productive and contribute.
Yeah, it also could be that he really wasn't 100% healthy last year, and now he is, and he's on his last leg. This is his last hurrah of like being pretty good. I don't know. I'm probably not bullish on him still, or him staying healthy. So just a blip. I do have Hopkins in a bunch of places, so I'd like them to be a little more target hoggy toward him and not spread it around so much. But it's working, so you can't really bitch about it too much.
Right.
I like Kyler Murray the way he's so elusive, man. I mean, Lamar Jackson's probably the better pure runner, and maybe Michael Vick was too, but like it's just impossible to get a hold of Kyler Murray. That guy is so like shifty and skittish and quick. It's like he's just ungettable. And so I think that, remember Vic made it to an NFC title game, and Vic's numbers as a passer were never that good, except with the Eagles that one year. And I kind of think like there's an underratedness to these running quarterbacks that just the defense just gets destroyed by it. Like it's just so hellish to deal with. And you always, when you're playing against one of these guys, it's like so frustrating to deal with them. So I don't know, maybe Arizona has more ceiling than it seems with Kyler back there.
Yeah, I think so. Got some news. Just broke. Joe Mixon has a low ankle sprain. He is week to week, Adam Schefter is reporting. So we saw that he missed the final drive on Thursday night. We always forget about the Thursday night game when we're kind of reacting here a little bit. I know we talked Bengals earlier, but this just came out. I mean, between Damian Williams and, Samaje Perine, we're going to have some interesting pickups this week.
Yeah, it's the standard like backup running back that's not already rostered when the guy gets hurt, right? There's always that. And I had Hubbard and I picked him up in one league. I didn't. Of course, Sam Darnold stole his goal line carries, but and Mixon, it's a low ankle sprain. It's definitely not going to be a long-term thing. So, probably it's a 1 week rental if you're picking up Perine.
But sometimes that's whatever needs you to get through the week, though, too. It's definitely the case. Well, Williams, probably is rostered in a lot of places. Thinner leagues, he's going to be available. Compare and contrast those two guys with AJ Dillon, because we did have a question earlier in the pod from Joe, and he was mentioning Trevor Lance available, Alex Collins, AJ Dillon, and then he goes Andy Williams also. So these are guys that you can go with, or Dillon, who finally got a lot of workload last week, or this week, I should say, against the Steelers. Who would you rather have?
I mean, I would rather have Williams because Montgomery. Well, I mean, we're going to know more, so it's like we're kind of in the dark of like what we're actually getting. But like, it seems like Williams is a home run if he's if Montgomery's out for a long time. But Dillon got work. He got some work yesterday, finally, and I don't know if that's going to continue or not. I don't know what's the deal. Like, is that a new deal where they're splitting, or is they're just giving they just gave Jones a rest in that one particular game? So I don't know. I think the problem with Dillon is you're going to have like a like another show me game before you can use him, and then if he has a dud game in between there, then you're never going to get to use him. So Dillon I still have in places, but it's mostly in case Aaron Jones gets hurt.
Yeah, I think so. I think you might be right about there. Yeah, I go Williams first too. We'll find out more about Mixon. We'll find out more about Montgomery, and that might dictate some things. Before we talk a little Niners and Seahawks, a quick note from our friends at Thrive. Thrive is back for another season of fantasy football, and they're running huge guaranteed contests each week this NFL season. With Thrive Fantasy, you can eliminate the countless hours of research and focus on only the top-tier athletes that have the biggest impact on the game. Sign up today and get a free 6-month RotoWire subscription. Here's how you claim that free RotoWire subscription. 1, visit rotowire.com/thrive. 2, deposit a minimum of $10 and receive a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. 3, play in your first paid contest, and receive a free 6-month RotoWire subscription. Thanks to the folks at Thrive. Thanks to our sponsors on the Blue Wire Network. Jeff here and Chris here, we're recapping week 4. One last game I wanted to bring up was Niners and the Seahawks there. Very weird game. Seahawks took forever to start throwing the ball, I thought, against the Niners' banged-up corners. Once they finally did, good things happened. Granted, I think a lot of that was also the pass rush getting to Russell Wilson. I think they're having a hard time protecting Wilson. But, once they did, it started working out pretty well. And, of course, on the Niners side, we have a quarterback issue.
I think Lance is just the guy. I think it's over. Garoppolo's hurt yet again. I think it's good. I think they got lucky that Garoppolo got hurt because he's not that good. Mm-hmm. And Shanahan, for God knows what reason, wasn't willing to pull the trigger. You cannot trade up for the number 3 overall pick, put that much capital into it, and then just sit in behind a Jimmy Garoppolo level guy who's probably not going to win you anything with the current roster. So I just feel like they needed to just turn it over to Lance 100% and find out everything they can for the entire year and then decide, is this a mistake or not? That's the information you need. And there's more upside for Lance because Garoppolo's not that good. And they got lucky that Garoppolo got hurt so they can just do that and get it over with. And I think Lance played well enough that he's going to start next week. I don't know if Garoppolo would be healthy anyway. And they just have to get it over with. And, I thought Lance kind of passed the eye test. He was a little herky-jerky, but better than Fields. And,
and Fields was a little better this week than he was last. Of course, Lions versus Browns. Right. Big difference there. We didn't mention Browns Vikings at all either, by the way.
Wasteland. The Browns defense, maybe it's really good. It
looked really legit. They couldn't do anything after that first drive. It was wild how they moved down the field very easily in that first drive, and then nothing. Bupkis after that. Yeah,
it was an ugly game, and I didn't watch that much of it. I saw that Dalvin Cook got like nothing, but no one of the Browns did much either. I mean, and then Nick Chubb has been he's giving up goal line carries to Hunt. So now it's like he's useless. He's Fred Taylor and Hunt's Maurice Jones-Drew. I love that pair because Fred Taylor would get more carries and they're all between the 20s, and Maurice Jones-Drew would get the catches and the goal line for that stint when they were both. Maurice Jones-Drew was the full-time guy after he left, but it was just, and you're like, Fred Taylor's, you can't even use him almost. And Chubb's just getting these sort of empty yards and a lot of carries. I'm sure Chubb will get some goal line carries, but it's almost as though they think Hunt is the goal line guy.
Yeah, that was weird and super annoying. Come on. It's just like that because especially they failed. I mean, they got lucky. They got bailed out on a penalty in the end zone where they should have been forced to kick another field goal. Baker Mayfield was terrible in this game. And this is a very exploitable matchup too. The Vikings DBs are not that good. At least I think Breeland is very exploitable. But we'll see. I mean, maybe that changes, but I was kind of underwhelmed by him. And meanwhile, all these rookie quarterbacks had their, all had incremental improvement. Wilson was much better in the second half than first half. Lawrence was better. They lost DJ Chark, and Chark's done for the season. They just put him on IR, but that was brutal. Fields was incrementally better. I think they're all kind of getting a little bit better, just not to the same sort of heights that we expected yet.
No, I think this was a real correction week. We talked about this all last week. It's, Rufus they struggle early, and that's right. He's correct, but this was not normal. This was well below expectation for all these guys. And a couple of them are going to end up being flops, and a couple will probably end up being really good. And, probably Lawrence is the most likely to be good, but you don't really know which, it's hard to know in advance. Who would have thought, Josh Rosen and Darnold were the flops and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen were the stars. Nobody really knows. Darnold may not be a flop long-term either, but nobody really knows heading in. But like this class, it was way too floppy. I mean, it could, they could all just be flops by luck, but that was unlikely. And so we're playing just terrible. And this whole week, every single one of them had their best game. Every quarterback. And they all played I watched Lawrence on Thursday night. I was like, this guy looks like the number 1 overall pick. He looks really good. He ran well. He made good throws. Wilson looked much better this week against Tennessee. I know it was an easy matchup, but they all looked really credible. Even Mac Jones looked like Chad Pennington. He looked like he was making good decisions, getting rid of the ball against a tough defense. So I thought they all looked pretty good.
Yeah. As you mentioned, that punt in the second half was just really bad too. I mean, the big problem was that defense. And, that's the thing that's a little bit tricky there. So I don't know. Because the defense got 0 stops in the second half. 0. Bengals had 4 drives. They scored on all 4 of them. You can't give it back to them. And, I didn't mind the goal line decision at the end of the second quarter. If they score that touchdown, it's probably game over.
Oh man, that's the other Survivor thing. 900 out of like 3,000 people had the Bengals in my big pool, so that would have been seismic. I know that. Forgot about that first half, but that was the stuff on fourth down. Okay, you can't really bitch about that. Sometimes you don't make it on 4th and goal.
And it was so close to making it too, by the way. Yeah.
But the punt, it was like, who wants to win the game, us or them? Okay, let's punt it and let them win it. It was basically the decision. I mean, you gotta. Especially when you're not going to compete. I mean, why not? I once read a poker book where the guy says, if I'm really 50-50, I always call. If it's really 50-50, why not find out whether you had it or not? Why not find out if the guy's bluffing? I mean, if you think he's probably not bluffing, don't waste money just to find out. But if it's really, and it's hard to be objective in a poker hand, a big poker, but like, if you really think it's really about 50-50, always call. Always go if it's 50-50, always try to win. I just think like that's, and I don't even think it was 50-50. I think it was like 60-40.
Yeah, I think so too. And so, yeah, but I'm thankful for that. Really appreciate it there. 4th and 4 from midfield. Just thank
wasn't
you.
As bad as Peyton's 58-yard field goal on 4th and 3.
No.
That was just so crazy. Like, what the hell are you doing? Like that was one of the most insane things I've seen a coach do.
There was a lot of 4th down failures. There was the Hurts play we talked about. How about also the Steelers 4th down plays running short of the sticks constantly?
Yeah.
I mean, 2 weeks in a row they've had hideous play calls on 4th down. The Niners ran the end around on 4th and 2. That didn't work. And the Broncos punted like it was going out of style. Now I understood on a couple of those punts, there was one where it was 4th and 19, but you're down 2 scores. Or it was like 20-7 in the 4th quarter. What do you expect? How are you going to win by punting it away? I just don't. I know how bad Drew Lock was, but
the announcers are so bad too. They're always like, "Oh, there's 5 minutes left. They're down 14. I think they might have to go for it here. What do you think? Do you think they should?" It's like they act like this is a decision to make. Where it's like, of course they're going to go for it, and it's just so weird. They're like living in this like credulous world of like deference that doesn't even exist. I don't know. It's always off-putting when like bad announcers are calling your game. The things they say, it's like they're talking to you like you're a 5-year-old or something like that.
Yeah, I'm going to miss the Manning cast tonight because they were actually questioning things. It was great at the end of the Dallas Philly game in the end of the second quarter, or right before halftime. It's like, I just talked to Mike McCarthy over the weekend, and I fear he's not going to take my calls anymore because I was criticizing his time management, because he was like, why didn't you call timeout? Why wouldn't you want to get another score?
Right.
And then Dallas used a weird timeout at the end of the second quarter yesterday when they had no chance of scoring, no chance of getting the ball back. It's like, do they teach you to do the opposite of the right thing in the time management school? But it's pretty funny. But Manning struck a chord because he's like, he demonstrated that whole access versus analysis thing. And a lot of
we've been harping on
access.
We've been harping on this for 10 years, right? And like these guys, they're nutless monkeys. And the thing is, Manning doesn't need access because he's got it forever because he is the NFL. The Manning family, Peyton Manning, one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. Right. He is the access. Like they need access to him, right? Like he doesn't need access to the coach. He can get access to anybody. He knows everybody. So he can just be outspoken. Whereas like all these like announcers that are trying to move up in their profession and they're not, that established, like if they're kind of, questioning of some of the coaches and the coaches don't like them, they probably know somebody who knows somebody. And pretty soon it's like, we just didn't re-up with you. We decided to part ways. We decided to go in a different direction, and that's that, so it's really, but it's a bad product because of that.
Yeah. I mean, and that's how you critique. I mean, you can critique without calling him a nutless monkey. But
No. You have to call him a nutless monkey.
or a real man or whatever.
Yeah, real man or nutless monkey. There's nothing in between.
Nothing at all. Oh, what a perfect ending point. All right. That's going to close up today's pod. I want to thank everybody for their comments in the forum. Really appreciate that. And thanks for everyone for listening. WinBet is our sponsor. They are our exclusive sponsor all fantasy season. We appreciate them. If you're in one of those 6 states that can utilize WinBet, WYNNBET, please do so. We got Jake and Joe tomorrow with free agents. Thanks for listening to the RotoWire podcast.